This video is about inventory exceptions. Let's set the stage. Today is the 12th of April 2021, and we've just collected all our inputs for the plan. The algorithms have run, and they've applied all their skill and creativity to create a good plan. But is it really a good plan? How can we know that? A good way to evaluate a plan is a business sound way to do it, is to look at your inventory, especially your inventory projection over time. And not only looking at the inventory, but also look at inventory exceptions. These exceptions are the exceptions now currently present and those in your plan going forward. And what are inventory exceptions? Well, to be honest, you don't want them, but you also cannot do without them. Inventory exceptions are those situations where the projected inventory is not exactly within range. So it's not within range means above the target and below the maximum, but it can also be below target, and it can in some occasions even below zero, in which case you cannot meet your demand. You have a so-called out of stock. Now let's go to the application. You already see on the news page the inventory exceptions quite prominently at the top left corner as a news reporter. But before we go there, let's get to the basic representation of the plan, the workbench. And let's zoom into Philadelphia. And what you see here is the various colors of the workbench. The inventory is always in gray, but the inventory is not always in gray because there is some yellow over here. And if I scroll further down, I even see a bit further to the right, I see some red over here. Let's look at that graphically. We have the monitor for that. And you can see here at the beginning of the horizon, you see the inventory projected in a yellowish color. Over here, some more exceptions, and that all correlates with these moments in the workbench. Let's look at this one. You see a period where it dips under the target line, which is this yellow over here. And if you go further down here, then you even see a quite serious inventory situation. There is opening inventory which is eaten up. The system is supplying and it's barely keeping up to the target line, and then at some point the demand is so substantial that even in spite of supplying it, inventory is zero and below zero, which is reflected here in the unmet demand or out of stock. Now, as you can see, that is already quite laborious to browse around the workbench, which is where the news reporter kicks in, the news reporter on inventory exceptions. I have zoomed into my finished products. I have some 41 news items. There are different types of inventory exceptions. You can be out of stock, you can be below minimum, above maximum. And let's take a quick look at this one below minimum, and then the third one is an above maximum. As you've been used to for these news reporters, you can select and then inspect, and then with this panel you can just go there. This is the F806 that we already knew and that we already saw before, which is the one where it goes out of stock at some point in time. Putting the monitor back in again, you see this one we've been reviewing before. This one, the F111, is a different story. We're going to this below minimum here, which is correlating to this area here. And if I go to the next one, I come to the same product, but I have my cursor on the cyan, which is above maximum. This, by the way, could be a situation that the capacity constrained planner is first ramping up for some inventory, squeezing the maximum out of the capacity available. That surplus is then eaten up, and then that dips over this period where there is not enough capacity to meet the demand in the peak season. There's a good chance that that is what is happening. Now, for those of you with slightly more overview desire, let's take some filters off, but not all, and let's go to another representation of inventory exceptions. If I search here inventory exceptions, I get various choices. I get inventory exceptions, which product will be out of bounds, inventory cover. I can also look at a chart on inventory adherence, and in preparation of this video, I've put those ones here in the favorites. So let's go to the inventory exceptions. I see a report zoomed into Warehouse Philadelphia. And again, it's my old friend, the F806, which goes negative further down into the planning horizon. And that's because this report opens with the tick mark out of stock switched on. And you can then subsequently ask for other types of exceptions. But the most serious exception is switched on by default. Let's see if outside Philadelphia there's more out of stock to be worried about, and yes, there is. The F15 is going out of stock in Brussels, and this is also an example where I can maybe exploit these date filters over here. You see, this is an out of stock that's quite early in the horizon, in the short-term horizon. Okay, we have maybe a few more days to repair it, but it's often the case that your short-term horizons, short-term exceptions, are sort of unrecoverable. You can't do much about it anymore. There's lead times involved. Your factory has been lined up to do certain things, and there's often only the option to accept. And if you just want to zoom in on that a bit more, then you just say, well, let's see the exceptions from the 30th of April onwards, and you see the row disappears because you're only looking at exceptions in the further future of your plan where you can still do something about them. Taking that filter off again and focusing on Philadelphia, I now take a look at what is my below minimum. I get all the yellow colors present, and I can also take a look at my above maximum, where I have my 903 going above maximum, and maybe further down the line the F806 also. Another choice here is whether I show the exception measure. So this is the deviation from target. So this 55 here means 55 above maximum, and this 155 in the minus means 155 below the target. If I just want to see what my inventory is at that point, I just tick this option, show available inventory. I still keep the colors, but what I'm now looking at as a number is the projected inventory itself. A next report I'd like to show is on inventory cover. Inventory can be expressed as the number of days of demand that it is covering. And also over here, you see the same color scheme, green being an additional color, meaning it's really inbounds. Yellow is below the target, and blue is above the target. But this is then not the absolute target, but this is the target set over here in the form of a maximum cover. So if I want my business to run with no more than 6 weeks of inventory, otherwise it may go obsolete or out of shelf life as a crude first indicator. If I want to run my business that way, I can just indicate this max cover here, and it'll show you where my projected inventory is above cover. So if I put this to 5, then I will see some more parts becoming blue where it is above the set limit. That's it for the day. Let's see you in the next video. Thank you.